The sons did all in its power to avenge a situation such as this, and the police members had to employ force to protect themselves from the tragedy. This is no time for blaming. This is no time for finger pointing. It is a time for us to mourn the sad and dark moment we experience as a country.
I appear for the following families: Mpuneni Noki, Mungezele Nteneta, Bongani Ngomokele, Felicite Yawo, Jackson Leupa, Semi Shokanis, David Ezile Sapeni, Probisile Amo, Henry Mpuisi Hart, Julius Roboti Mantoro, Mzubisi Sombeta, Patrick Akona Jitase, Babalo Mutazi, Mafolisi,
culturally cruel and sensitive cosmopolitan academic environment. You sit in these institutions and you think you're in Cambridge. That is purposeful. These institutions were ready and living the life middle class living. These institutions were in fact a primary part of building and developing apartheid South Africa and colonial Africa. And so what you have is university students coming of age who've gone through good schooling, but have also been at the coalface of experiencing racism, exclusion, and the kind of denial of who people are.
When a student like myself or another student is learning something about the world from a point of view that tells you that nothing happened in Africa outside of a colonial experience, for example, it cannot be sustainable.
They came from the west and saved violence. We hated that disease going on their flesh and appeared to harm our lives. They claimed to be friends when they found us friendly, and when they met in Morena, they fought for the rain. Expressors of Africa, Africa might be after.
Who's going to pay your balance of fees? Parents.
In first year, there were 50 of us in our class. And second year, there were like 20. We had to see people that we knew very close and our friends not coming back to school.
To poor people and to women in ways that this is likely not possible. As you have this happening, you have the state withdrawing something.
It also particularly by people in positions of power at the time, that we needed to think more critically about priorities, and we thought that higher education wasn't one of those priorities.
The big universe, the ones who brand value, the ones where the elite used to increase by the logical
Never born free after seeing
That's when we were teens.
Yes. I think at kind of showing the kind of work that he does, the style, the tone, the subject matter, very current affairs, and we actually chose 3 other clips that we wanted to show. We actually wanted to first speak to Rehad about some other things before we showed these scenes, but maybe we might just rather show these clips before we continue the conversation. So we have 3 more selected scenes. Oh, should we just go in? Yolo, is Rehad there?
Students are nihilistic, which, if you really sit and think about it, is absurd, because why would people be asking for free education if they were nihilistic?
This narrative in the media that students are only interested in burning down buildings is a false narrative. Education is not a privilege. On radio you hear education is a privilege. No, education is a right.
Not just here, but nationwide.
umhlaba namanje sena 45 years soba sengikhehla kwanami so nawo ukulanzula khona ngikwazi ukumuva ngikwazi ukwenza next video baba wami wasebenza iminyaka esebenza iplaza kanzima eshaywe ekhahlelwa ushililo nzima ngempela impilo inzima.
Wasipilika uzikisaisenze ile mzima basi lutu wamaholi batholi lutu bashayo kuphela ayikho into kazibayisebenzela bayenza izinto seyifuna le ndawo shonile madilana lana intaba shonile yahamba kuba nini ngihambe umhlaba bawutholana kuba nini nganamhlaba kuba nini lokusoka lonkamelana ngifuseni ngigade ibhulilwa nami yini okusasa ngitshalo kanti kuba nini ngithumule.
From 1993 until namhlanje uJabulile Men kanye nobaba wakhe uJohane Men benze isihluko esikhulu ekhaya. Kuthe makushona ubhuti wami okuyena wayefakele ikhini enezinkabulo kuthe uma beshona ezongcwatshwa khona la ngaphakathi ejardini. Kwaba isihluku esikhulu thina siyakhala bona basithile ukuthi la akwazi ukungcwaba so le nto le yaphatha kabuhlungu. So, kami dizinginga ko, kota na po ko democracy, communities na, kapila ko isa na masuka kasi children. Njengoba sisaphila nje, sizokwenza lokhu until size siye ku-final.
Great, so that last clip was from Toho Kupa's work and the short film that he's producing, directing with Rehat Desai's, what's the right word? Should I say mentorship, guidance? What's the right word in that context?
Democracy, and there's really a sense in your work also of these questions about the kind of unfulfilled promises of democracy and these assemblies of grassroots kind of gatherings trying to contest the effects of power and how power is kind of embroiled with the force of the police, with corporations, with capitalist interests. So there's always for me this kind of interplay between this politics of extraction within the work, so within Miners Shot Down, that's very clear with the Lonman mine, and this idea of certain lives as disposable to the state, and within Everything Must Fall, we also have that sense of this quest for decolonized education and how through the introduction of police force within the campus there's this kind of escalation. So there's this politics of extraction, but then also this politics of escalation, and then the idea also of necropolitics, who decides whose life is worth preserving, and whose life is considered worth mourning. And I think in this film about land, I think explosive moments. So I'm wondering, how do you position yourself within that as a filmmaker, and how do you navigate that in terms of storytelling?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is to be able to really look at what you have and what the footage is saying to you, and work through what it can say about the situation. And for me, all filmmaking, whether it's documentary or fiction, is about being very clear about what you want to say, what is your central message, and crafting it in a way where you can get people to begin to accept or hear the message at the very least, and hopefully imbibe it. So these are two, for me, pivotal moments in our history. One is the 2014 film down, the incident takes place in 2012, and it shows to what length to act, but that was done through, and is done through your ability to connect to them emotionally. So the truth, the emotive truth, I think, is largely underestimated in the academy. The power of emotion. It's the same place where, in our brain, where our values sit. Life sciences affirm that now. So how do you begin to, you're clear about what you want to say, what your message is, and then become clearer about your documentary. Following the massacre for 6 months, but we realised we had something in the archive that a couple of days that we were up there prior to the massacre, and then the TV footage in the police archive and the London archive told the story through these various sources, which all, in one way or the other, contaminated, but really spoke to what was going on in the minds of the various players involved. So, it was really two things going on. It was about an of the state, because that's the only force that we can expect any accountability from, and two, the line from Oposa was about what happens to those former radicals who assume positions of power, what happens to them in the process. And in a similar way, that was a very important line for me, as was Anna Bibb's class location as a vice chancellor, really becoming part of the ruling elite, the ruling class. Tribal and blah blah blah, murderous criminals, get close to them, and that was the first base where we challenge the narrative. The second base is really where we find out that we slowly discover that this is a plan to break the strike violently, which leads to the deaths. So that's what we wanted to show. You know, the first task role in such a situation is first is to decide to take a side as a progressive filmmaker, to work out what is required in terms of challenging the narrative. Now, we had great help with the Commission of Inquiry and the lawyers, which we helped to got involved in the defence of the miners at the Commission of Inquiry. So we were assisted in the legal arguments that needed to be made and the political arguments that needed to be made, often which lawyers are unable to make. So there was a number of, I suppose, imperatives going on inside that film, and I'm very proud of it. You know, particularly this last year, I've had conscious and shift public opinion to that extent, and so it gave me a renewed enthusiasm about the power of film, and that actually my primary role as an activist is to make the best film possible, and everything has to be subordinated to that. It can be quite telling and possible.
On the ground and what's happening on the ground. There's also quite a large focus that you put on examining and putting under the microscope the men with the power, you know, these larger than life giants. I guess, you know, I was quite surprised when I saw Soho's film, which kind of does the very opposite in a way. It's really looking and focusing mostly on the people on the ground and is a little bit more character driven. So I wondered if you might want to speak to that.
Has, you know, developed tact in being able to get these people on camera, to meet with them, but also to honestly reflect on whatever situation, you know, they might be implicated in. And I think it just comes from one of Riyad's strengths is looking at the big picture. So for example, whether it be land, whether it be education, whether it be the miners who were shot down, I think he's very much interested in the macro scale of things, which I think stems from his journalism background as well. I
was able to follow more of what you were saying, Soccer. I mean, I think, and somebody's thankfully put some of these questions in the box now, in the chat box. I mean, I'm always wary. I'm a trained historian. I really don't believe that. I try and get away from the history as the history of the big men and women, or kings and queens and so on in society. But it's so really what am I doing here? I'm trying to government and the middle class and so on. It doesn't shine often, or it starts cracking apart. And I think we're going to see that very much with the government of national unity, with the victory between the ruling elites, the political and economic elites, over the course of the next couple of years. But that's part of it. So believe that there's an innate intelligence in people when they're looking. So yeah, it's trying to dig a bit deeper.
Okay, I think we're a bit pressed for time, so I think we should go over into questions possibly from the audience. So if someone has a question, could you maybe just come forward a bit, and we can hand over the mic, and you can also pop onto the screen.
Hi, Riyad. How are you? Speaking to Terrence and Zuza. How's it? You good?
Hi.
Hey, what's up, man? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hi, Riyad, can you hear?
No.
No.
Okay, wait.
Yeah, that's what I get.
Oh, yeah, I just want to
type it in. Someone needs to type it in.
Okay, but you can ask the question. Ask the question.
if when he makes, when he get into project, he thinks of himself as a civil activist or as a filmmaker, like, because I know he's very active in civil.
What they're saying, hopefully at times to try and sharpen what they're saying, but I'm genuinely in service of a part of the movement or the wider movement for to hold the lines in some degree or the other. I suppose fees must fall, and the Wits thing, a bit was the leader of the Vice Chancellors, and he was leading the charge, really. And what was he leading the charge to do? To break the movement, to break the incipient movement which could only be held together in the liberal campuses where it emerged this diversity of voice and way of organising through a constant have an agenda. I have an agenda with everything I do. I'm fortunate enough to be able to largely determine what that agenda is. But I'm also trying to make films for people who don't really care, not really interested. It's a mass medium, and I respect that because I also respect the power of TV broadcast, and so I can only go so far. But in the case of a massacre, the journalist had to come on. What I had to do, my responsibility there was primarily to tell people what happened. Obviously, I'm telling it through a point of view. The Film Must Fall film, again, it's I decided to show a part of the movement which I found interesting, which I found inspirational. I focused on one university because I was interested in what was emerging politically in terms of that student movement, an emergent student movement. So that was, it's obviously my point of view, and I believe filmmaking, drama filmmaking is about undiluted points of view. And I didn't really have to some level of restraint was required because I set out to make a film to help build the dialogue in the fallout from the massive conflicts which erupted inside our universities. A lot of those conflicts were internal. I'm told, staff members still don't talk to one another following their respective positioning. emotional disconnect we have in late capitalism, where we're at 30, 40 years of unbridled neoliberal individualism, where we're all sitting in our own little corners. This is a social enterprise. There's nothing like watching films together in the cinema and talking and debating and arguing and discussing afterwards, what we see. People interpret things in many different ways. They read into what they're seeing in many different ways. So I don't know if I'm being able to answer your question. I think it's yes and no.
Okay. Great. Great. Thank you, Rehad. And I also just want to remind everybody that the
on the skin of their pants, or whatever the term is, they're broke, and they somehow think they can monetize their intellectual property through holding on to it for time immemorial. But it's a misnomer, let me tell you. And secondly, these films are made with public money. Films I make, I want to be seen by as many people as possible. I truly believe the film is only completed in this viewing. I do not make films for myself. I do not buy into this auteur sort of stuff, as I was saying before. I'm generally in service of someone or some idea or some movement or the other. And the film's got to get out there and have its life. And many people now, more and more, I'm often spending my time spending at least a month or two travelling around in Europe every year and wherever. So it's freely available. The notion of user pay, every time you want to consume a bit of culture you must pay, is something I detest. It's the same thing I detest. An education system where people have to pay, a TV system, a house system where people have to pay. This is not my type of politics, and whatever I can do to undermine that in my own little way as a filmmaker, I will. I believe in pirating, I support copyleft, and I think the individual IP is a very important fight, particularly around archive with institutions and so on, and owning your copyright. The key thing to do, once you are able to own it, let it go as much as you can afford to let it go, particularly a year or two or three after the film's finished. No one's going to buy it, or if they are, it's out of the bag. And, I still sell stuff that's on YouTube. Still, people put it on SVODs and stuff. If they really want it, they're going to give you a few